Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. We're just getting everyone in. So just give it a minute or so. Lovely to see some familiar names. Welcome, welcome. Good afternoon. Oh, lovely, Joe. It is bright and sunny here as well, actually. It's really nice. But it's meant to get super hot this by the end of this week. My pasty Welsh skin doesn't cope well with that. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so first things first, you probably noticed that I am on my own this afternoon. Those of you who've come to our People events before know that generally Tom and I like to deliver these together, but he's actually delivering a session for one of our clients on role models, male role models, so a men's mental health session. So he's in that right now. So he sends his apologies. He was actually really disappointed, but it was the only date they could work. Um, but he is absolutely kind of sending his best and wishing he was here. So I am flying solo today, or sort of solo. I don't know how closely you can see on the screen, but if I just tilt that camera, you can probably see that's little Dave just there in the corner. He's suitably thrilled with being here. So he's fast asleep and exhausted. Little Dave has been a feature of Beam for many years. He's 14 now, bless him. Used to be a therapy dog, but we've retired him. He just hasn't got the patience for it anymore. So it's nice to have him with me at least, even if Tom can't join me. So, for those of you who haven't joined a People event before, People is an initiative that we at Beam Development and Training set up last September. So, we've almost been doing it a year. And we set it up really because through our work through Beam, we deliver training and coaching and leadership support for organizations all around the world. And what we noticed over and over again was we were dealing generally with HR, L&D, well-being, and those people cared passionately about their teams and their employees, really wanted them to get all the support that they could. But we noticed that they were often doing that at the expense of their own well-being. And so they were running themselves ragged, they were exhausted. And I don't know if you've seen any of the latest sort of HR statistics, but as an industry, people in people-centric roles are really struggling with burnout, compassion fatigue, what we call the well-being paradox, where you're supporting everyone else's, but yours isn't supported. And so we set that up with the idea that we give some of our training away for free to anyone in a people-centric role, which we've proudly been doing. This is our 11th one, I believe. And we do that on topics that we know have a huge impact for people. We are supported by the HR Network Wales, which is supported by Darwin Gray and Acorn. And so we will start to kind of change and expand how people works. So we mentioned last month that we've introduced our first ever People magazine. It's absolutely live. The first edition is available on our website, free to everyone. Lots of articles that we think have real relevance at the moment, and we share lots of tools and techniques as well. The next one is due out towards the end of next month, and we have already had some articles submitted from HR experts. So if you want to submit an article for the People magazine, we've got a distribution of about 650 People. You are more than welcome to get in touch with us, submit an article. If you want to submit an advert, get in touch with us. Tom is managing all of that, but we can absolutely put you in a future edition if you would like to. So it's lovely to see how that's growing. So today's session is all about confidence for people. Something that I've actually been delivering on for a very long time in terms of confidence. And the way that I deliver confidence sessions is probably not the most conventional way. So I'm not here to tell you to fake it till you make it. I'm not here to tell you to channel your inner rock star, to find your voice, all of those things that we've probably all been told at different confidence courses. Instead, what I really love to get out of people is true, authentic confidence. So that can be incredibly quiet. That doesn't mean that you're, kind of the center of attention, the loudest in the room. True, authentic confidence is you being able to be the most real version of you. In people-focused roles, confidence is definitely not about bravado. It's being able to show up, to speak with clarity, especially when things feel quite uncertain. It's about being able to hold your ground when people get a bit over emotional. It's about being able to set boundaries and say no, a session that we've delivered in the past as well. And it's about trusting your instincts, trusting yourself when you're navigating perhaps some of those gray areas. So confidence for anyone in a people-centric role is really important because the stakes are not only personal, they're often focused on groups, teams, or even the entire organization. So what we're going to look at through this session is essentially get a better definition of what confidence is. This is where I always say confidence was a game changer for me when I truly learned to define it. I'm going to talk about the importance of trust and how we build trust, how trust connects to strong leadership, to credibility. We're also going to briefly run us through why we lack confidence. None of us were ever born feeling that we weren't good enough. None of us came out of the womb and thought, oh, are they going to like us? Are they going to judge me? Do I look okay? We've learned that stuff. And so I'm going to briefly explore all of those reasons that we may lack confidence. And then I'm going to look at what happens when we lack confidence, which is that we often go into self-sabotage behaviours. And I'm pretty sure when I touch on those, you'll be able to resonate with at least one. Probably some people here will be able to go tick, tick, tick. Yep, I recognise all of those. So let's start with understanding what is confidence. It's definitely a term that we see thrown around. It's a term that has been delivered in training rooms for many years. As I say, it's often delivered from a point of being able to fake it till you make it, being your inner rock star. And it's often something we visualize as someone who's confident as being perhaps the loudest in the room, the center of attention, the most gregarious, the person who seems to have an answer for everything. If I asked you right now if you are confident, the chances are that you would probably say to me, well, in some areas I'm confident, but in some areas I really lack confidence. And to me, that's really healthy. The reality is nobody should feel confident in every situation. I feel very confident in public speaking. It's something I do pretty much every day of my working life. But I should definitely not feel confident in perhaps dabbling with open heart surgery. There's things that are absolutely out of my remit, and I should absolutely acknowledge that. So when we're talking about confidence, we first have to recognize the difference between confidence and arrogance. And I think certainly over my years of working with individuals, there's sometimes this inner fear that if I'm too confident, people might perceive me as arrogant. And if we channel confidence correctly, that's just not the case, because Confidence can be incredibly quiet. Arrogance is always loud. Confidence is something, and this is really important for people. Confidence is something that enables us to empower others. We don't feel threatened by others. We empower them. We give them the opportunity to step into their confident selves. Arrogance tends to take power away from others. Confidence can be very quiet about our successes, our achievements. We can be very humble in confidence. Arrogance needs to shout about those successes and achievements. Confidence is absolutely having the ability to say, I don't know the answer, I'm wrong, I've messed up. All of that is really important. Arrogance really fears saying, I don't have the answer, I'm wrong, I've messed up. So there's a real clear difference. So if I ask you, and this is a reflective question, you don't have to put anything in the chat box, but if I ask you what confidence means to you, I wonder what kind of answers you start to come up with. When I ask this in the training room, what I often get is being your authentic self. That comes up quite a lot. Public speaking is usually connected in certain workplaces with confidence. Being able to handle any situation. And to some degree, that's correct. But actually, confidence is so much more than that. When we start to define confidence, what many of us will do is we'll start to look for extrinsic validation. So we will feel confident if someone gives us praise. We will feel confident if we've got the promotion. We'll feel confident if we've been given a bigger team to manage. And all of those things can give us confidence, but if you've noticed, all of those things give us temporary confidence. They don't tend to give us a stable confidence. And that's because we're looking extrinsically. If I look extrinsically for my confidence will always be a little bit volatile and vulnerable. Because if I'm getting my confidence from getting the praise of others, what happens when I inevitably get negative feedback? My confidence becomes shattered. It becomes really fragile. If I get my confidence from having a promotion, what happens when I don't get the promotion? My confidence becomes really fragile. So if I am looking for confidence externally, then I am likely to always struggle with it feeling like a stable part of who I am. And this is where I had a real light bulb moment in my own confidence. My confidence absolutely came from feeling like, okay, I need another qualification, I need to do better, I need to achieve more. And I believed that that was how I could eventually get to this kind of goalpost, I guess, of feeling confident. But the reality was when I started to work out that if my confidence was always extrinsic, it's always going to be volatile. And I needed to start to work out what my intrinsic version of confidence was, that my whole essence of who I was started to change. And it began really with me understanding the etymology of the word confidence. I think if ever you are unsure of something, I definitely always go back to the etymology of a word because it helps us define it and get the true meaning. And the etymology of the word confidence actually comes from Latin, and it's confidere. And it means essentially with intense trust. So if I have confidence in a colleague, what I'm saying is I trust that they will do what I've asked them to do. If I have confidence in my friend, what I'm saying is I trust that my friend is reliable to me. If I have confidence in myself, what I'm saying is I have intense trust in myself. And this was the game changer for me. And certainly when I train along these lines, it seems to be a light bulb moment for a lot of people. We tend to spend most of our life seeing if other people like us, validate us, trust us, without ever really reflecting on, do I like myself? Do I trust myself? We know that in our relationships with other people, trust is crucial. If I have a relationship with a colleague, with a friend, with a family member, and I don't fully trust them, I am not going to put all of my confidence in them. I might like them, but they're certainly not going to be reliable to me. But what very few of us ever do is recognize that the most important relationship we have in our lives is our relationship with ourselves. And very few of us have ever sat back and reflected on, do I trust myself? Am I reliable to myself? When I say I'm going to do something, do I do it? And this is where our real definition and solid, unshakable confidence can come from. And certainly from practicing this for probably about a decade now, it has completely changed not only my levels of confidence, but certainly how I interact with other people, because it enables me to walk into any situation not feeling like I've got to know all the answers, like I've got to be the best person in the room, because I'm always going to fail at that. But it enables me to walk into any situation and say, I trust myself to handle this. I trust that I can cope with this. I trust that if I'm presenting to 500 people and the microphone stops working, I trust that I can deal with that. I trust that if I am helping a client on a one-to-one basis and they're in a bad place, I trust that I can give them the support they need. That level of trust is not dependent on anything external from me. That level of trust has come from me building a relationship with myself, being reliable to myself. And what I think very few of us ever really consider is the times that we say to ourselves, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take that course, I'm going to speak to that person, I'm going to put myself forward to that job, I'm going to start going to the gym, I'm going to do an exercise class. Whenever we make these commitments to ourselves, if we don't follow through on them, nobody else is really affected, but it actually starts to chip away at our trust in ourselves. If I tell myself I'm going to do something and then just don't do it without any kind of external force being the reason, then what I'm doing is I'm starting to destroy the trust I have in myself. And so when the pressure is on me, I start to lack confidence in my ability to cope with things. And so this starts to create a real journey when we start to realize this, because now I understand that confidence means intense trust. I now need to understand, well, how do I create trust? Where do I get trust from? And luckily, two of the world's largest researchers on leadership and trust are two researchers called Kouzes and Posner. They've done incredible work and they have questioned, the last count of their survey was actually 2 million respondents to their survey. It's been going for decades, about 40 years. And they look at what makes a good leader, whether that's in business, whether that's in military, whether that's in sport. And one of the top things that comes out of making a good leader is that we trust them. And so they wanted to expand that a little bit further and say, okay, so what is trust? How do I define trusting someone? And they came up with this acronym that I love because it looks like a Welsh word. You can actually say it as if it is a Welsh word. It's not. Dwyswyd. This acronym is so powerful because it defines what trust is. You do what you say you will do. That's trust in a nutshell. If I am following a leader and I trust them, it's because I know they do what they say they will do. If I have a friend who I trust, it's because I know that they do what they say they will do. The two crucial components to this that Kouzes and Posner found was what you say and what you do have to be in alignment. So if I say something, I have to do it. I have to walk the talk for other people to have trust in me. If we bring this back to confidence, for me to trust myself, I have to do what I say I will do. What I say and what I do has to be in alignment. And that's harder for ourselves than it is for any other relationship we've got. Because it's easy to let myself down. It's easy to make a promise to myself and not fulfill it, especially if I've never said it out loud. But if I start to create a discrepancy between what I say and what I do, I start to break trust, which breaks confidence. So this is kind of, if you took nothing else away from this session right now, this is a real golden nugget of development. We work a lot with the work of Kouzes and Posner, particularly in terms of leadership. And what they found in terms of Doisoid is that they call it their second commandment of effective leadership, that you will not be an effective leader if you don't do what you say you will do. So the number one way for you to build trust, to build confidence, is to practice Doisoid in every moment. When I coach people on a one-to-one basis, I will often get them to just put this in big letters on a sticky on their laptop and just have it visible, continuously reminding them that I need to Doisoid in every area of my life. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that none of us are born lacking confidence. Why do we lack confidence? What happens? Why do we start letting ourselves down? Why do we destroy that inner trust that we have? Why do we start looking for external validation instead of trusting in ourselves? Well, there are lots of reasons, lots and lots of reasons, lots of individual reasons as well. But there are key reasons why we lack confidence. Now, as a therapist, you're probably not surprised that I will blame the parents. Our parents absolutely impact our confidence. No matter how wonderful they were or how terrible they were, your parents' upbringing of you, the way that you saw your parents with their own confidence, will absolutely leave a mark on you. So with the best will in the world, you may have had a really overprotective parent that kept telling you to be careful, to watch out, put your coat on, you'll catch a death. And what you may have learned then is that the world is a bit scary. I can't trust myself because the world is too frightening and I need someone else to look after me. You may have had a parent that was super encouraging and told you you could do anything and you were the most amazing child in the world and whatever you set your mind to, you're capable of, which seems like really positive parenting. But actually, when you then went into the world and perhaps didn't get that feedback or failed, you may have believed that you weren't good enough. And of course, we may have parents who are less than supportive, parents that criticize us, that tell us we're not good enough, that make us feel unlovable. And that will start to define how we believe that the world needs to see us. All of that basically starts to give us a story before the age of 7 of my true self needs to adapt a little bit so that other people love and accept me. On the back of that, then we then start to interact with society. And we learn from a very young age that in order for us to get by in society, to be accepted, we need to not rock the boat and conform to society standards. It's really important from a survival point of view that we are accepted by society. If we think back to sort of living in caves, if our society rejected us, we would be very vulnerable and unlikely to survive. And we still have that wiring today. And so as a child, we start to observe how people behave in public, how society tells us to be. You'll have a parent telling you, oh, we're going to a really nice restaurant, so you've got to behave in a certain way. We're going to the doctors, so you've got to whisper. We're going to Auntie Margaret's, and she's really strict, so you can't touch anything. All of these tiny little messages start to tell us that we need to conform. And if you don't believe that that has happened, let's imagine this scenario. Imagine that you looked out of your window right now and you see a 5-year-old child skipping and singing on top of their voice as they're going down the street. The chances are it'll make you smile and you'll think that's really sweet, that's lovely. Now imagine you look out of your window and you see a 45-year-old skipping and singing on top of their voice going down the street. We start to think that's a little bit strange behavior, right? This is society standards. We've all started to conform. We've all started to realize that we need to behave in a certain way to be fully accepted. What that tends to do is it gives us a message that we're either not enough or we're too much. So sometimes I might need to shrink because I'm too much. I've been told that I'm too loud, I'm too chatty, I'm too something. Or it might feel that I need to put on a front because I'm told I should be more. Oh, you should be more confident. You should be more polite. You should be more outgoing. And so we get these mixed messages, all of it confusing our brain to say, well, the most dangerous thing for me to be in society is my true self. So I need to adapt. As if that isn't enough, probably one of the most shaping parts of our life is we then have to interact with school and our peers. Our education has a massive influence over who we are for predominantly the rest of our life. Brené Brown is a leading researcher in shame, and she found that by the age of school leaving, so 16 to 18, around 80% of us have experienced a moment so profoundly shame-inducing that it's forever shaped how we view ourselves. So it completely changes us. Education makes us conform. It has very strict rules. We're put in the care of really powerful authority figures in terms of teachers. We're told probably what clothes to wear, maybe what hairstyle to have. We're told what topics are important. So if you're really good at maths and science and English, that's great. But if you're really good at more creative subjects or music and you're scored in Evaluate, you might feel not good enough. We're also banded and graded on the way we perform. So we'll be seen as the intelligent children or the children who absolutely aren't. And we'll be judged by that. We're compared to our peers all the time. And then, as if that's not hard enough, our peers are going through the same situation. And so our peers start to judge us, point the finger at us. Anything that's different about us is likely to be pointed out at some point in school. So if you're intelligent, you might be teased because you're a nerd or a swot. If you're not academic, you might be teased because you're stupid or you're an idiot. If you're too tall, if you're too short, if you're a certain weight, whether it's over or under, who knows? I guarantee if there's a difference, your peers probably found out about it and made you feel bad about it. And so we start to realize that we need to find our people and we need to try and conform and fit in. We start to dabble with different things to try and find our personality, express our personality. Maybe you were had a goth phase, or maybe you were really rebellious, who knows? And then we start to get influenced by mass media. And this is happening at younger and younger ages now. If you were fortunate enough to perhaps grow up before social media in your teens, you still would have been influenced by mass media. I grew up in the 90s, so I was influenced by magazines, by TV programs. When I was growing up, size zero was a huge thing. I don't know if anyone's of the same sort of age as me, but size zero was huge. The girls from Friends, Kate Moss, all of that. So body image started to be a huge thing that I was exposed to in the 90s for sure. If you've grown up since social media has been part of childhood, then it's even harder because I was growing up comparing to people like Julia Roberts and Jennifer Aniston. You're growing up comparing to not only those sort of celebrities that are put on a pedestal, but also your peers. You're seeing these amazing pictures of people living a great life, doing wonderful things, having seemingly the best job, the perfect relationship, holidays, and you're sat there comparing, feeling bad about yourself. All of that is gradually chipping away at our confidence and also our acceptance of our individuality. We start to again have this story that I must conform, I must be like other people. And then if that's not enough, we all have our individual life experiences. And our life experiences shape our version of who we are constantly, our ability to trust ourselves. So maybe you failed an exam, maybe you were bullied, maybe you've had a difficult relationship, maybe you had to move locations, maybe you've suffered a bereavement, even going through the pandemic, have all shaped how we interpret who we are. So when we see these, it's kind of difficult to imagine that anyone has confidence because actually, from almost day one, our confidence starts to be chipped away at. And if we put all of these things together, what it really defines is that we start to get a message that other people's views of us should determine our self-worth. How other people see me, therefore, should determine my confidence. And what I'm challenging you with today is to actually totally flip that on its head and say, no, actually, how I see myself should determine my confidence, and how I interpret how I show up should determine my confidence. Now, if we lack confidence, it starts to change our behavior. And the key ways we'll see it change our behavior is with self-sabotage. Oh, Joe, I use that quote so often. It is the thief of joy, but we live in a world that encourages us to compare all the time. I mean, social media is built around comparison, right? So it's really difficult to not compare. And when we slip into those behaviors, what we're likely to do is self-sabotage. And self-sabotage is our way of kind of undermining ourselves because of fear of judgment, rejection, failure. And actually, something that I often tackle when I deliver deeper in this is also fear of success will often create self-sabotage behaviors. Sounds strange, doesn't it? But sometimes we self-sabotage because we're terrified of what will other people think of me if I make a success of my job, my business? I see it a lot when I'm helping people with a history of body issues and certainly weight loss. People will often lose weight for a while, and then when they start to get towards their goal weight, they start to self-sabotage themselves because there's a fear of who will I be? Will other people think I'm full of myself? Will other people judge me differently? And so we start to sabotage that so we can get back to our comfortable discomfort, I often call it. And there's many ways we self-sabotage, and I'll quickly kind of go through them. But procrastination is absolutely a self-sabotage technique. If you've done our stress workshop, and you can find all of the previous workshops on our website as replays, but procrastination is a stress response. It's essentially freezing, putting something off. We'll procrastinate because in that moment it feels easier to not do it, but we actually know that it'll cause us more stress later on. Then we've got perfectionism. Perfectionism is where we tell ourselves it's not good enough yet. It sounds like high standards, but it keeps us really stuck. Perfectionism is an illusion because none of us can ever achieve it. Abraham Maslow, the famous psychologist who was behind Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he had this beautiful quote, which I'm going to paraphrase. It was, so far there have been billions of people on this planet, and not one of them has ever been perfect. So why do you think you have to be the first one? It's just gorgeous because it really sums up that we're setting this unattainable goal that we know we're going to fail over and over again. Keeps us really stuck. Avoiding feedback. This is something that I really worked with when I started to redefine my confidence. I was very keen on getting the praise and recognition, but if you're keen on getting the praise and recognition, you're also going to be really susceptible to the negative feedback. So someone saying the slightest negative thing is going to cut you like a knife. However, fearing criticism is very different to avoiding feedback. So it stops us from improving. If I never ask for feedback, then I'm never going to improve. I'm never going to get the collaboration of other people's opinions and ideas. So as soon as you can start to bring your confidence more internal, what happens is it's lovely for you to say a nice thing, but it doesn't change who I am. It's fine for you to say a nasty thing, but it doesn't change who I am. It becomes unshakable. Negative self-talk is that kind of constant internal voice that many of us have. And no matter what they are saying to you in that internal voice, it tends to whittled down to I'm not good enough in some way or another. In all my years of helping other people, whenever they tell me they're not good enough, I will often say to them, well, what would good enough look like? And they can't define it. And as people, that's a really cruel way, isn't it, of trying to get someone to improve. If we said to a colleague, you're not performing well enough here, but we didn't tell them what they needed to do or what performing well would look like, we wouldn't be very kind. And yet we do that to ourselves all the time, telling ourselves, I'm not good enough, I'm not capable enough, I should be more, is really harsh if I don't give myself a benchmark. And then many of us can overcommit. This often slips into people pleasing, where we take on too much. It's quite a sneaky way of self-sabotaging. And we often can find that we'll wear it as a badge of honor about being so busy, I've got so much on. But it actually leads to burnout, mistakes, and that can reinforce our fear of failure. So I'm pretty sure that you will resonate with at least one of these. But the nice bit is you do have the power, particularly once you start to recognize it, of changing those patterns that are holding you back. So I'm going to share with you a couple of my favorite tools. They're all based in behavioral science and psychology, so they've got research behind them. The first is a tool that if you've done my workshops before, you will know that I use this quite often. I often call it name it to tame it, or notice and name. Naming the pattern is really labeling that this is self-sabotage. So recognizing, hang on a minute, I'm procrastinating. This is a form of self-sabotage. The reason this is powerful is because studies have shown, particularly a great study by Matthew Lieberman, have shown that when we recognize and name a difficult emotion, a difficult emotional response, then we start to engage our prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking brain, our rational brain. And that part of the brain enables us to take more rational action. When we don't label it, we stay in the limbic region of the brain, which is our fight or flight response, our fear response. So a great way of using this is kind of going, okay, so this is perfectionism. It's trying to protect me from being judged, from putting myself out there. So you can say it out loud to yourself, you can write it down. And then this is the crucial bit. If you're taking notes, you say, okay, what's one small step I could take now that would move me forward? One small step. The next tool is the 80% rule. As people, you are probably in a situation where you feel like you have to be really prepared for a lot of your meetings, a lot of your interactions. And that can cause us to slip into perfectionism, procrastination. It's probably because you care so much, you want things to be done right. And of course, there are situations where elements have to be really accurate. But a lot of the time, that kind of thought process is keeping us trapped. It's keeping us in procrastination and perfectionism. The 80% rule will help you move forward with what I call healthy excellence rather than perfectionism. So would this be good enough for someone else? If a colleague submitted this to me, would I think it was good enough? So good enough is good enough in most circumstances. So giving yourself this benchmark of, okay, is this 80% good right now? That's good enough for me to put it out into the world. That's good enough for me to take action. Then we've got something I've talked about before. Again, you can look at our boundaries session as one of the replays, but it's what I call stretchy boundaries. So buying yourself time when you recognize you're self-sabotaging is really important, because if I buy myself time, I can, instead of giving a fear response, I can give a rational response. So teaching yourself to, instead of saying yes, which is probably what many of you do, and instead of saying no, which is what boundaries teaches, but for many of us is really difficult, we say not right now. So can you do this for me? Not right now, but I can once I finish this piece of work. Oh, can you take this on for me? Not right now, but next week when I'm quieter, I can certainly have a look. Not right now starts to reclaim your power a little bit. It helps you respond rather than reacting. And it helps you learn to trust yourself, to build that inner trust. And then the last one is to manage that negative self-talk by recognizing it's not you. And this sounds really strange because, of course, it's me, it's in my head, right? But the reason you can recognize it's not you is asking yourself, do I want to believe this, or do I want to feel like this? And what your resounding answer will be, well, no, of course not. Now, it is you, your inner critic, but your inner critic is actually you in terms of your fear voice rather than your rational voice. So you can start to flip that a little bit. When I talk about inner critic, mine is named. Mine is called Barbara. Barbara is quite well known now. Lots of people have heard of Barbara. And Barbara is that critical, fear-focused voice that I have that, if I'm not careful, will convince me to do nothing because that's the safest thing to do. There are many tools I use with Barbara. The first is recognizing that she is not me, that she's only focused on protecting me, like really overprotective. And then the other thing is, actually, the way Barbara is talking to me, would I say this to someone I cared about? And it's invariably absolutely not. So I can manage that inner critic. I can manage my inner Barbara by making sure that she just tones down a little bit and that she's not fully in control of me. The last thing I want to leave you with is a little exercise where you can start to build your confidence. These are sort of 3 almost little mini journaling prompts that you can do after any difficult meeting, difficult conversation, awkward moment. So first of all, it's asking yourself, what did I do well? Really simple, but your brain is likely to go to what you didn't do well. So it takes a bit of practice. Then, instead of what didn't I do well, ask yourself, what could I tweak next time? So maybe I was a bit too reactive and I need to respond. Maybe I needed to take a breath. Maybe I needed to not let my negative talk get so loud. And then this is a beautiful journaling tool to really help grow your inner confidence, that doisoid. What did I learn about myself from this? So those 3 journaling prompts after something challenging will start to train your brain to trust you. It's kind of putting doisoid in action. So we've come to the end of this session. Essentially, what I want to share is that as a people person, the greatest tool you can grow in yourself is doisoid. To learn to do what you say that you will do. Have your words and your deeds in alignment, not separate. As always, I will absolutely hang around for any questions. A little highlight of what's next. Yeah, you're so welcome, Stuart. Good to have you here. So we have all of our resources on our website, which you can access right now. It's Beam Training, and then there's a People button. You can see every resource, every replay that you want to keep you busy for a while now. You can schedule a call with us. So I'll pop a little link in the chat box right now. This is where I really rely on Tom. So you can also join our LinkedIn group. So feel free to connect with me, Tom, and search us for People. And our next workshop is 12th of August. As you can see, July and August workshops are inevitably much quieter. We've had, I think it was 74 signups for today and a much lower in-person attendance, which we expected because a lot of people are on holiday or covering for people on holiday. The next one's a really important one. It's burnout. So even if you can't make it, I would definitely sign up for that. And a link will be sent to you after this session. If you want more help, we work with staff in so many ways. So we can work with you on a one-to-one basis. We can support your EAP. With our employee support program, we deliver wellbeing, leadership, personal development workshops. We work with senior leadership teams. We do lunch and learns, you name it. We do it. If it's about wellbeing and personal development, it's what we do. If you how do you mute? Oh, I disappeared for a moment then. I'm going to stop recording anyway. Thank you so much for joining me today. And of